So, welcome to Unscripted Company, the podcast where authenticity isn't just a feature, it's the foundation. My name is JK, one of your hosts, and alongside me is my good friend and co-host Riley, who just had a really upsetting defeat in Destiny 2, which we might get into here in a second with the water cooler. But just if it's your first time listening, Unscripted Company invites you to break free from the scripted world and dive into discussions that are as real and unpredictable as life itself. And if you've been around the block with us a few times, that's probably the most scripted this entire conversation will be for the next hour or so. Naturally, being Unscripted Company, we might as well start off with something called the water cooler. So Riley, I know you're just playing Destiny 2. It sounds like it was a pretty heartbreaking defeat. I heard the word teabag get used a couple times. How are you feeling?
I mean, at the end of the day, it is just a video game, but there are some games where when you know that essentially you're carrying your teammates and, you know, it gets exhausting. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a spring chicken when it comes to gaming. I mean, there's probably 10-year-olds out there that could outgame me any day, realistically, because they have no worldly responsibilities. They just go to school and come home and probably play video games. So there's definitely people out there that are better than me, people out there that actually probably play, you know, PvP games professionally. I'm not one of those people, but I do have a unique set of skills when it comes to first-person shooter games that I tend to be better than your average person for someone who only plays and just recently got back into playing Destiny 2. I mean, I've only played like 7 games total, I think 7 or 8 games total, and I've gone positive every single one. You know, like I've been top of the leaderboards kind of thing. So it sucks when you lose, and, you know, like, especially when there's a lot of new players coming into the game. It's like, you know, I get you want to try competitive. You might have been good at other first-person shooter games, but Destiny 2 is not your average first-person shooter game like Call of Duty or anything like that. It is a little bit different. So,
You know what that sounded like to me? That almost sounded as though you were a backup quarterback that took his team to the Super Bowl and then just lost. And you had to give like a press conference at the end saying like, hey, I've been playing this game, maybe not as much as the other guys. There's also these new guys getting drafted every year. But hey, I took us to the Super Bowl. Did I win? No. Am I good? Yeah. Et cetera, et cetera. That's what it sounded like to me.
Low key, thinking back now, I was like, that did just sound like an after game Sports Center interview kind of thing. Like, you know, I was like, well, you know, man, sometimes you just lose games, but you get back up on that horse and you just keep going, you know. So
Yes.
but
Hey, it happens.
It's fun. Yeah, it happens, man.
It happens. How's the rest of your week been though? Anything?
I mean, it's been good. I mean, I got a couple new clients. I mean, I got a closing this upcoming Thursday, so I got to finalize some things for that, you know, get closing gifts, all that kind of stuff and everything. But, I mean, it was good. I mean, it could have been a little bit more productive, but that some weeks are less productive than others. And some weeks you just, if you own your own business, you kind of just sometimes lose that motivation, but you got to try to find ways to keep yourself motivated, try to find new ways to get business. And obviously, as we head into the summertime, business will start picking up, hopefully. So
It's a grind, to say the least.
it is a grind.
There's good days, there's bad days, there's good weeks, there's bad months. It just, the ebbs and flows of the roller coaster of self-employment.
Yeah, but I will say ever since January started, though, I have done, whether it has been a lease or a sold home, I have done 1 transaction a month. So I will say that, like, even if the leases don't net that much profit, that's fine. I have done at least 1 transaction per month, so that's good. Looking forward to June and July. Hopefully I can get a few people under contract for then. But yeah, how was your week?
It was pretty good. My wife, Abby, got me hooked on this little-known popular show called Bridgerton. Have you heard of Bridgerton before? It's a Netflix show.
I've heard of it, but I haven't watched it.
Interesting. I was curious if Dana would have watched this or not, but it's a drama. So it's a scripted drama. Season 3 just dropped. We haven't started season 3 yet. For any of the ladies listening to this podcast, they're probably well aware of what this show is. Their target demo is definitely females. It's definitely not like a guy's show. But the whole premise of the show is it's the British royalty in the upper echelon of the British class in the 19th century, so like the early 1800s. And, like back in the day, like dating was so much different than what it is today, to where you've had this whole idea of courting, and like you can't be seen alone in public, like with the opposite sex. You have to have like chaperones, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So the show is basically about this family with the last name Bridgerton, and they're a big family, and it's just about the whole courting process every year. It's a show that I would never have watched on my own, but now I'm hooked on it because I was forced to sit there, and now I've watched basically 2 seasons. After we're done recording this, I'm going to go watch the season finale of season 2. So yeah, that's been my week. It's been watching Bridgerton. So if you need any tips and advice on courting as a young male or female in early 19th century England, I'm your guy. I got you on that knowledge now. But outside of that,
this is Unscripted Company offering courting advice since 2024. You heard it here first, folks. Yeah, see, it's funny though, like when you talk about like shows, like there's very few live actors shows that I get like addicted to. Like currently right now, like my show that like I hate when a new season comes out because then you got to wait every single week for a new episode to come out. And my current show is The Rookie with Nathan Fillion in it. Man, this season is heating up so bad, and every single episode I'm thinking like, okay, this is it. This is going to be the episode where they get this person. This is going to happen. Doesn't happen. I'm like, man, now I got to wait till Wednesday for the next episode to come out. I'm upset. Anyway, so it's like there's very few like live action shows. Like a live action show has to be really good for me to be like, okay, cool. Like I'm going to watch this. Like it took me years before I watched Game of Thrones, but that's just because like I didn't know that much about it, but then we started watching it, and then I was hooked on it, and then just like every other Game of Thrones fan, was sorely let down in the final season. House of the Dragon is currently out. We haven't started watching that yet, but season 2 is about to come out, so we're probably going to start watching House of the Dragon at some point. But, I mean, obviously most of my shows are anime. Like, I went from watching live action shows to now watch, anime, and sometimes I'll find one where I can binge watch it, and then I feel empty inside because it only has like 4 seasons out, and they're only like 20-minute episodes, and so like then I feel very empty inside, and so it's a love-hate relationship, mostly love, but it is what it is.
The one thing I will say about Bridgerton that is kind of cool is it's currently Netflix's flagship show, so you can tell they've sank a lot of money into it. The production values, it's up there like an HBO show in terms of the sceneries, the set, the post-production, if there's any CGI, stuff like that. So it's really, I don't know, it's interesting, but I know most of our demographic is probably dudes, and so I'm not going to go recommend that every single dude out there go watch it. But if you're a dude listening with a lady friend, if they haven't already watched it, you should recommend it, and they will probably giggle and blush, but then you'll enjoy watching it together. It's a good time.
Right. So. The only thing that bugs me about Netflix, though, is that they cannot commit to a show. And yes, for anyone who is a Witcher fan out there, you feel my pain because Henry Cavill, if you haven't seen The Witcher yet, I recommend watching it. I think there's like 3 seasons out of it right now. But so Henry Cavill, for those of you who know who he is, and if you don't, I'm honestly surprised that you don't know who he is, but he is a nerd. Like, he is literally like the king of the nerds. Like, the nerds have dubbed him that because he's a PC gamer. He builds his own PCs. He is a fan of like, World of Warcraft, like RuneScape, like all those types of games. Like, he's a straight up nerd. And so he's read all of the Witcher series books. Well, the series on Netflix is based on those books. And so, like, with him filming, he would go through and, like, when they're filming a certain part, he could tell you, like, which book, which chapter, which page, and which line they're actually kind of going through to make it easier on the other actors. Well, Netflix does what Netflix always does best. And they were like, yeah, like, we're not going to follow the books anymore. We're going to do our own thing. We're not going to follow what you want us to do, even though they told him that that's what they would do. And so he quit, and now they brought in Liam Hemsworth, and just looking at the comparison of the 2 actors, very disappointing. So probably will not watch any more Witcher.
Did they just like swap the actor like a 1-for-1 and they're hoping you don't realize it's a different guy? Like it's still the same character in terms of like the show, but they just swap the actual.
Well, everyone knows this happened because like when the news broke that Henry Cavill was not going to be The Witcher anymore, like there was an uproar about that because like when you find like that perfect actor for that show, and it's like you just know like nobody else can play this person. It's like Robert Downey Jr. playing Iron Man. Nobody else can play Iron Man. Henry Cavill was Geralt, like he was The Witcher, like he was that person. And as soon as they switched it up for Liam Hemsworth, like you could just tell, like it's not going to be the same. Like I feel like they shoot themselves in the foot so much that Netflix cannot. And it's a Netflix series, so like it's not like a series from somewhere else. But Netflix made this series. They just can't seem to stick with one actor or have a long running series of something that is a Netflix original show.
I also remember hearing something once a couple of years back, and I don't know if there's any validity to this, but there was like a rumor that Netflix was abusing some of the like Screen Actor Guild policies, where you'd have a scenario where, let's say you have like a new actor or actress that isn't like well established, and you got them to play a lead role or something like that, where there's like a rule, and maybe this has changed because I know there was that big writer's strike and whatnot about a year or two ago. But there was a scenario where like you only like pay increases for set and cast members occurred after, I think it was like 3 seasons. Like if you have a show in production, once it hits like season 3 or 4 or whatever that gap or that line is at, then you have to increase the budget, pay people more money, et cetera, et cetera. And Netflix was they were aware of that. So they were basically only having shows greenlit for up to 3 seasons or up to 4 seasons, whatever that was. And so that's why so many of their shows, even the good ones, were just they just stop like after season 3. Unless they were a huge success, like a House of Cards or Orange is the New Black. Like, the thing that everybody talks about.
Okay, that makes sense, I guess, because I never knew what it was because like for someone that, like, I mean, I like Netflix original shows. Like, I'm a fan of Cobra Kai. Like, I like watching the Cobra Kai series, and it's on, I think, season 6 or 7 is about to come out soon. So obviously that's one of the shows that gained popularity, but it's like, when you see stuff like that, you're just like, okay, this is a really good series, but because the mass majority of population didn't like it, it ruins it for the people who do actually like it, and they're not going to continue producing it because it's not making them money.
Yeah. I can't find anything with a quick Google search, and so what I said may or may not even be true, but it sounds plausible.
Yeah.
So you could probably find something if you do your due diligence with it. One thing I saw this morning, and I was going to have it be like one of the first things we talk about. Have you been seeing what's going on with the Iranian president, or lack thereof?
Yeah, so my buddy this morning in church showed me an article about that, like the helicopter that was supposed to take him to his destination. Like, I don't think the helicopter ever made it there or something. Like, he's just gone and just disappeared. And I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, it's wild. So for those listening, you may know more than we do at this point, but we're recording this on a Sunday night. It's May 5th or May 19th in the evening time. But really all we know right now is that a helicopter had, what was it? I pulled up an article because they've changed the story a couple times, because they actually said, so it was a helicopter carrying the Iranian president, Ibrahim Raisi, the foreign minister, and other like state officials. It went down in the northern region on the way back from an official visit to Azerbaijan earlier this morning on Sunday. When the news first came out, they said it was just a hard landing and they were going to go find him. But since then, they've now come out and said, no, it was a crash. Now, what's very interesting is, as of right now, unless there's news that's broken since we started recording 15 minutes ago, they still haven't found him. So it's a very weird scenario where I'm assuming if he survived, I mean, he's going to have to survive in the wilderness and figure that one out for a little bit, because it seems like it was a mountainous region. I tried to do some more research on that area because I'm not familiar with that neck of the woods. But also, helicopter crashes are extremely dangerous and sketchy. Like, what are the odds you're going to survive a helicopter crash, especially in a mountainous region? But there's also like other heads of state in there. It wasn't just the president. So like the president's a big deal, first of all. If you lose him, gone. But also had a foreign minister and other state officials with him in that crash. Now, if anyone's aware of any geopolitical issues going on right now, Iran is very much involved in this whole Israel-Palestine scenario. And of course, they're one of the few, if not only, countries that over the last 20, 30 years, the United States has yet to really go to war with. And so that's always been kind of on the precipice of when is that war going to happen? So my first thought when I saw the news this morning was, who did it? We don't have to answer that here, but like I just thought, I was like, okay, it was either us or one of our allies as a proxy. It could have just been a haphazard crash. Like helicopters do crash often, I think. Statistically dangerous compared to other flying vehicles, but like it's a very convenient time for the Iranian president to be involved in such a scenario. Now I say this, he could be alive. I don't know, but.
And that's the thing though. It's like, I mean, I didn't know, like, based on what you just said, I didn't know hardly any of that, but like, if it was a crash, whatever the case it might have been, it's like, what caused the crash? What, like, were there survivors other than just him? Like, because here's the thing. It's like, if you know the helicopter crashed and you know where the helicopter crashed at, obviously, if he's alive, he would be around that area. I don't think he would go too far from that area, honestly, because the smoke signal would obviously signal people to come check it out and see what's going on. Really depends on the location. There might be enemies over there, obviously, you know, you never really know. But, like, that would be my thing is where, like, how did all this go down? Like, you know, when did all, like, what started this? Like, was it just an engine malfunction? Again, like, you know, what was the real cause of what happened and why have they not found anyone yet?
Yeah. So here's what we know so far. So as I mentioned earlier, initially it was described as a hard landing, but later Iranian TV and journalism would come out saying it was actually a crash. Search and rescue has taken hours to reach the crash site, but little is known of the progress amid bad weather conditions. I saw a video. It's like extremely foggy. Like you can't see more than like a hand's length ahead of you just because of the weather. The Iranian Foreign Ministry said, quote, despite adverse weather and environmental conditions, efforts by rescue teams to reach the accident site continue earnestly and with hope. Iranian population in state of uncertainty as supreme leader asked for prayers for their president and the missing officials while assuring stability within government leadership. Various countries have sent search and rescue help, including Russia and Turkey. Iran requested a night vision search and rescue helicopter from Turkey, according to Turkish disaster management agencies. Gulf countries expressed concern over crash, offer help in search. Al Jazeera is reporting news saying that Iranian officials have said, we hope for good news, but no good news has yet to be had. Iranian official told state TV that contact was made with one of the passengers and one of the crew members of the president's helicopter on several occasions. He is yet to be found, though. And there's a bunch of other little news things, but that seems to be the biggest like bullet points thus far. Outside of, there's now, of course, a heavy military presence reported in the capital city of Tehran because, you know, no matter how your country's political system is set up, it's never easy to change head of state. Like, just think about in our own system when Abraham Lincoln passed, when JFK passed, there's a bit of like, I mean, we weren't alive. We didn't actually see it with our own eyes, but there's a bit of a, what's next, you know?
Well, I mean, and we're not going to go down this rabbit hole. This definitely could be a whole nother episode on its own. But I mean, it's funny, the two examples that you gave though were like they were assassinated or killed, and was it by an inside job based on our own government system? Like, so was it like, could it have been, you know, their own people that did this, like to change power, to change hands, to kind of do something different? You know, this is just like their way of getting to that point of where they want their country to be at.
Maybe, but I'm almost thinking it would be influenced from the outside, because this would put Iran in a very weak position. However,
But
I think the U.S. always finds a way to screw themselves. Okay, let's go. For those listening, this is complete hyperbole in theory. Everything I'm about to say is not probably true, but it would be weird if it was. What if you had a scenario where a 3-letter agency was involved, potentially training other assets at another country to use as a proxy for this, to where we were to take down this helicopter, assuming state officials from Iran were to perish in the crash? That then creates a power vacuum within Tehran, the capital city of Iran, to where you can then push in someone that you have more control over to help bring Iran closer or farther away into this international conflict that's going on in that neck of the woods. We have a whole history doing it all across the world. So why not just add another country to the list, you know?
I mean, again, for anyone who's listening, like, wait, this is pure theory and speculation.
No, everything Riley's about to say is facts. Take it as facts, written record.
Please don't. But like, it's funny because like you hate to say that stuff like that makes sense, but it does when you actually really think about it and you look at stuff and you just look at history as a whole. That when you see stuff like this going down, it's hard to not believe that there's someone that's pulling the strings from behind the scenes. Because, I mean, next to China and Russia, I'm pretty sure the U.S. has like one of the biggest. I think those are the big three. So it's China, Russia, and the United States are the 3 big superpowers in the world, like compared to like everybody else. And so to me, it's not far-fetched to think that any of these 3 powers have any control over what goes on in all these smaller countries, obviously. But like it makes sense overall. With how the fact that they could just have someone that's just on standby. Like we have people from, other countries that are in our country right now that they're just being taught what to do and how to do things just so we can either gain more allies, more power, or whatever the case it may be. Again, take it all with a grain of salt, because until we have something concrete based on, news and stuff like that, this is all pure speculation. So,
yeah,
but it does make sense when if you kind of think about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, if anything comes of this, we'll probably talk about it again next week, because if the Iranian president really were to perish, things are going to get very spicy in the Middle East, like much more spicy than they already are. And I think they're already at, I don't know, they're at like a habanero level. Like they've already surpassed the jalapeno. We're here at like a habanero. And if the Iranian president were to perish, I mean, we're getting like to ghost pepper level status here, because Iran is one of the few countries on this planet that have things that go boom, big, boom. So we want to make sure that, I say we as if you and I have control over this. Like, it's a big deal in geopolitical alliances and how things unfold over the next decade, the rest of our lifetime, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
We're ants compared to the stuff that they can do. Like we're what's the term called? Not an unwanted casualty, but I can't think of the actual term of it. But essentially we're just here.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what all it boils down to. So.
Yeah. We're pawns on the chessboard, basically.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Now, I got something more lighthearted, unless, do you have anything on your end that, I mean...
I actually had a couple things, but now that I was thinking about it, I was like, the other thing, I could just kind of keep that on the back burner. But let's talk about the weather that's been happening these past 3 weeks. Like, first of all, like, there's been tornadoes in areas of Texas that usually don't get tornadoes. Like Houston had one. When was the last time Houston had a tornado?
Dude,
and especially,
did you see
one that
over 1 million people lost power?
Yeah, like that, and then the straight line winds that were happening, things like that. Like it was like they were even telling people, like, if you're in like a skyscraper and you're on one of the upper levels, like to go down to the lower levels, because there were window panels missing, metal panels missing from these buildings. And it's not even just Texas either. I mean, the amount of weather that's happened, just like across like the central Texas line, and a lot of it probably could have been caused by the solar flare stuff, because they're even talking about other weather that's supposed to be happening as well in the next few weeks. But like the amount of tornadoes that we've had, like just going all the way through Oklahoma. I think Wichita Falls had a tornado. There was a tornado south of Fort Worth like a couple weeks ago. Paris, my hometown, had a tornado, like not a bad one, but it didn't go anywhere near the city, but it was in between Paris and another small town. But it's like what is going on? Like with all this, just the bad weather and the tornadoes and stuff, it's like they need to calm down.
That's a funny transition, actually, because one thing I texted to a friend this morning when we were talking about the Iranian president helicopter situation was, they said it could have been due to bad weather conditions why the helicopter crashed. And you know the whole thing about weather machines and creating weather. I'm like, I know who has weather machines. And so I don't know, it was just funny how that was actually one of the topics I want to talk about, was like just all the tornadoes and the crazy weather that's been happening.
Well, it's funny you say the weather machine things, because Dana and her conspiracy theory podcast, like someone actually talked about like obviously how governments have the ability to control weather, and how they'll sometimes use can't think of what it was, but there was like one where it's like they actually put like certain things in the rain that are like I can't think of exactly what
it's a real thing. We can literally create rain. Like it's not conspiracy anymore. It's like an actual. I'm trying to find. Here we go. Let's share my screen real quick. This is technically a clip from ABC, so God willing, ABC doesn't come after us. I don't think they would though.
No, we're not even on their radar.
Yeah. Let me do this real quick.
Cloud seeding projects across the American West. There are currently 42 cloud seeding projects across the American West, like this one in Utah, where they take planes like this with flares attached. They fly right into the storm and send microscopic particles into the cloud. Particles that act like magnets for water droplets, bonding together until they are heavy enough to fall to the ground as rain or snow. At the University of Colorado, researchers are working on artificial intelligence to deploy cloud seeding drones.
So this is a real thing that is happening. That's crazy.
Yeah. But what worries me even more, though, is like they have the ability to and again, this is just speculation, but it's like, obviously, you need to have like a weather like pattern, like you need to have rain, you need to have evaporation, like all that kind of stuff that keeps that cycle going. But what if them doing that is causing like all these bad storms to happen, and then the tornadoes happen, and then people lose their housing, and then people die? It's like, are they trying to do like an involuntary population control kind of thing? Because they're not very good at it if they are, because, obviously the tornadoes haven't really, I mean, there are people that lost their lives, but it's like, what's going on with it? Like, why do they feel the need to do this? Like, what's going on for them to cause the reasoning for this to happen?
That's the big question. A lot of people have already caught on that that's the end game, that's the goal, but why? Is it to control resources? Is it to ensure that you don't have enough people that rise up to take over those that are already in power or control? Things like that. Like, do you remember not too long ago, it was within this year, all the flooding that happened was it Dubai? All that flooding or was it Abu Dhabi?
Yeah, I think it was one of the two.
Yeah, it was flooding. It was Dubai, right? Dubai flooding. Yeah, it was in the UAE. It was just like biblical level flooding in that city. And it's just a lot of people think it's connected to trying to manipulate the weather, and it went wrong. In an area that's not supposed to get a ton of rain, they got a ton of rain.
Well, like even there was like one like I said, there were a couple places that were getting like some bad weather, and places that don't normally, like I said, that don't normally get tornadoes that were getting them. And it's just funny though, because it's like, if you're trying to do population control, I mean, I'm not saying do like because other countries will actually like limit you to how many kids you can have. Like they will tell you like you can only have one kid, you can only have two kids, like. And I'm not saying like necessarily we should go that route, because believe the uproar that we would have if people did that. But at the same time, and I am in no way judging anyone, because whatever happens is, it's at the end of the day, God has a hand in it. But at the same time, if you're just going around and just having multiple kids and you're just, getting child support, I'm not saying like don't have kids, but I feel like you need to control like some of how many kids some of these people have. Like there's families that have like 11 kids, and I'm like, that's 13 people that you have to feed right there, including yourselves. It's like, that's a lot of resources that are being used for just one family, and it's things like that. But as far as like a resource, like saving resources and such, honestly, there's no way to save resources. Like, we've already used up so many resources as it is. Like, there's no way to counteract that and to get back to how we want,
Yeah. The one thing that's interesting is how the U.S. birth rate is actually falling, like dramatically right now. It's like us, Japan, so a lot of the Western entities were not in a good position for what's to come. Let me show you real quick. I can actually share my screen to give you a visual. It's pretty wild.
Kids are ain't safe.
Yeah, a lot of people don't like realize this is happening. Like the population is increasing, but the birth rate of those that are here is decreasing. Let me share my screen real quick.
A lot of it's probably younger people too, because like a lot of young people just don't want kids.
Yeah. So this is the U.S. birth rate for 1,000 women aged 15 to 44. And ever since 2007, there's been a huge decrease here. And you can see it kind of clips off at 2020 with this data, but it continues to decrease year after year. And so Japan's seeing a similar thing right now too, where they're not having enough people being born to replace their aging population. Like, think about us. We have the baby boomer population that's still around, but in 10, 15 years time, that generation, it'll be dwindling, lack thereof.
Yeah.
And so who's replacing that generation within our own country? Now, there's other theories behind who is replacing those individuals in terms of just population count. But for those that are here, we're not doing a good job at repopulating. But I think you and I kind of see it firsthand. There's a lot of reasons people aren't. So
yeah, and I mean this is just personally. I mean, again, kids are expensive, and it's like when the cost of living, especially in Texas, is so high as it is, it's like I'm not gonna, if I had a kid, like I wouldn't have any money to support that kid, like it's just one of those things. And I was actually looking at it while you were looking that up, but the current U.S. population right now is at 336,456,959 people. Now, a while back, probably about 2 years ago, we were like 7 billion people.
I think we're almost at. Oh, have we hit 8 billion yet?
We have hit 8 billion.
Yeah.
We are 8,048,621,140 people and counting. Right.
There's a lot of people in China and India. Like, people forget. Those
are the two top ones, actually. They're over 1 billion apiece. But it's like, when you just look at it, it's like, so, and it actually shows like other statistics too, but like there's a birth every 9 seconds, there's a death every 11 seconds, and then there's one international migrant every 28 seconds, and then the net gain of one person every 19 seconds. To me, that's kind of insane. It's just, it blows my mind just how much the population grows, but yet people just aren't having kids anymore. And I'm like, how does that, the math is not mathing now. That's how that works. So.
Yeah. And with any other type of data set, like numbers can be manipulated too to tell a narrative or a story. So I'm sure you could cherry pick any kind of data set to say, oh, the population is increasing or it's decreasing, or we're having too many kids or not enough kids, or I don't know, you can make up a narrative with any kind of data set you can put together.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's funny. I mean, it'd be a perfect time to actually like transition, because like one of the other things, like I was just thinking about this, like, what is life? Not the game, not the board game, but what is life?
That's a deep question. Are you talking about like biologically? What is it?
Well, like, think about this, okay? You're born. You don't remember your own birth. Nobody remembers their own birth. Like they were like, there's just a scientific reason behind it that I don't know. I could probably Google it and find out. But there's a scientific reason behind why you don't remember your own birth. You grow up. You don't really have memories. Like you kind of like forget some of your memories of being an early child, and the only thing you have is the old photograph pictures in your old photo albums to kind of tell you. But like you grow up, you go through school, you get told all this stuff. Yeah, you sit in your classroom, you do all this stuff that you did. And keep in mind, school used to, like, I'm not saying school is more fun now or school back then was more fun, but it's like there were things that we did in school, like elementary school, that they don't do now. And I'm like, that's messed up. Like, y'all should still allow that stuff. But it's like you go through school and you do everything that you do, and then you graduate. And then when you graduate, unless you had parents that actually taught you like certain life skills, you graduate not knowing anything, essentially. And then you just go to college, you rack up debt, and then you get a job. And then if you're good with money, you pay off that debt. If you're horrible with money, you live with that debt for the rest of your life. So it's like the whole concept of just life. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, what, like, how, like, everyone's journey is different, but it's like we still somehow, like, everyone just goes about their daily lives just doing what they do, you know? So it's like, to me, it blows my mind. Like, there's just so many people in this world, and everyone's got their own mission, their own goals, their own vision of what they want in this life. And there's just some people that just don't care. They're just here. They're just vibing.
Some people spend their whole lives thinking about that question. So, you know, there's philosophers that spend hundreds of thousands of hours trying to think through that. I don't have an answer for you, unfortunately, other than one day we'll find out, hopefully. I don't know. Like, you know, what's in the great beyond? Does that have the answer potentially? But then, I don't know, going back to, I don't know, one of our previous podcast episodes, you even talked about the concept of like reincarnation or rebirthing or, you know, living multiple lives in a sense. Have you ever heard those stories? They're few and far between, but there's some where you have these like kids that will claim they have memories from like a past life per se. Like there'll be a kid that remembers, there's like, I can Google it to try to find it, but there's a story of this kid that has vivid memories of how to fly one of the fighter jets from World War II. Like it was a weird memory of like, he knew how to do something that no child would in their right mind even begin to have an idea of how the heck to fly a plane, nonetheless, a very specific type of fighter jet from World War II. So I don't know. Yeah. Go back to your question, though. What is life? I don't know. Spin to win. You'll figure it out.
Well, like, I mean, there's just so much that just goes into it, though, that people just don't think about. It's like, and again, it kind of goes like, just one of the things that I mentioned, for example, it's like, I don't have, like, it's hard for me to, like, remember events that happened in my life, you know, unless it was like a traumatic type event, which even then, like, I still managed to get some of the details wrong because I told the story one time with my family, and my dad was like, that's not how it happened. And I was like, well, how do you remember that? Because I don't. Like, so it's like, you know, it's funny how, like, you don't remember things of your own life, but people can remember stuff of your life who are your family. And so it's just like, it's like you start losing those memories as you get older. And so unless it was like existential event that happened in your life or anything like that, like, you just don't remember those things. And so it's just like, there's just so many things like that they just don't teach you about life in general. Like, you know, when you become an adult, like, you're probably going to have like existential crisis like once a week, you know, like, there's going to be, it's just life in general, you know. And but they just don't prepare you for any of that, you know. Like, you just go through elementary school coloring and learning your alphabet and your multiplication and subtraction and all that stuff, and then next thing you know, you're, you know, 25 years old, graduating from a university, if that's the route that you choose to take, and then, well, you're figuring it out.
Something that's really wild about life, and I don't think we've talked about this before, but and here's, okay, so I guess I got to ask you a question first, and then we'll dive into this fun fact is, do you have a voice inside your head, like a voice that you can kind of talk to in a sense? You know, not everybody has that. There are some people that experience their daily life without an inner monologue. Like they're just in go mode, or I call it go mode at least. Like whenever you stop and you contemplate something, or even if you're sitting here right now and you're probably thinking to yourself, man, what's my follow-up question to this going to be? Or like, what do I say next? Or, when you start to hyperanalyze, like, oh, breathe in, breathe out, and then you're conscious of yourself breathing. Some people don't have that inner monologue that they can talk with. There's a portion of a population that has this phenomena. Now, what is that? I have some wild theories, but first of all, like, have you heard this before?
Well, I mean, the thing is like, I'll do that during the day. So it's like, like if I'm sitting on my computer, it's like, I'll just be telling myself in my brain, like, okay, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. This is what you think would like. And so it's like, and I guess, again, it goes back to my, sleep patterns, because I guess I do it in my sleep too, because my wife told me I was having a conversation in my sleep. So maybe that's just my inner monologue coming out in the middle of the night, having a conversation, trying to figure out what is going to be happening the next day. But no, like, I did not know that. Like, I thought that everybody had a voice inside their head.
It's wild, because the people that don't, like, I honestly don't know what it's like to experience that, but I always say it's like go mode, to where if you're not like talking to yourself, like that inner monologue, like how do you process what to do next other than just going on your basic instinct? Now, one thing I like to ponder, and this is going way down a rabbit hole here, this is something that, for those listening, first of all, if you're listening, let us know in the comments section. Let's do a little mock poll here. Do you have an inner monologue? I hopefully I didn't like just ruin someone's day because they just realized they don't have one and they're like, hold up. But then they wouldn't be having that thought with themselves internally, right? I don't know. But let us know in the comments section, or wherever you're listening. Spotify's got a little comment thing, YouTube, Rumble, etc. Where was I going with this? Oh, but I have a fun theory behind this, and it's not an original theory. I've read it in the dark corners of the internet. But what if that inner monologue that you have is your soul, and not everybody has one? What if there is a finite number of souls to go around, and we have surpassed that number as a species?
So, well, there's actually another theory. I mean, I do like that theory, but it's funny though, because and we've had this conversation with some of the people in our church before, but it's like when people were like, oh, I want God to talk to me, like if I don't hear him actually talking to me, then I don't believe he's real, kind of thing. The thing is though, is God's not going to come down and say like, oh, well, you have to do this, like in some deep voice. But sometimes the voice that you hear in your head is the Holy Spirit telling you what you should be doing and should not be doing, and the steps that you need to be taking, kind of thing. So I guess you could say technically the same thing about that. So not everyone has that voice, because not everyone has, God within them or the Holy Spirit with them. That's why some people have it and some people don't. So I guess, and again, that could be a reasoning behind it. But that's interesting though, because if you don't have a soul, then what are the people that, what would you consider those people? Do you have one? Do you have a voice in your head?
Yes, I do.
You do? Okay, cool. I was about to say, we're gonna have a conversation just to see how you differ from me, so I can kind of figure out like where we're going here. But I know Dana has one too. Does Abby have one?
Yes,
she does. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, I haven't met anyone personally that doesn't, but I do know that it has been cited that there is a portion of the population that does not.
If you are one of those people out there that does not have a voice in your head, please leave us a comment so we can actually, like, I actually want to know. I want to know what goes on in your brain. Yes. If you do not have a voice inside your head, like I want to know what goes on up there on a daily basis.
Yeah. And just to circle back, to totally get off topic, back on topic, one thing I was going to bring up earlier when you were talking about storms and like the tornadoes and all that, just to get ourselves out of this rabbit hole real quick. Have you noticed, I have this other theory, and I've never done my own deep dive of research to see. I'm sure there's probably a meteorologist out there that has a theory on this, but have you noticed how Tornado Alley has like shifted to the east a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
A couple of years back, or like I guess our entire existence growing up, it would be like central Texas up through central Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, stuff like that. But now you're starting to get so many more tornadoes east. Like, of course, Houston. So think of Houston where central Texas was, but then you're seeing it in like Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana. Heck, I think even like South Illinois and stuff like that. And I remember reading it's because of like, what was it, like different level of pressure in the atmosphere shifting it east or something like that. It's just interesting because I remember all the time we used to get all these tornadoes in central Texas, and we still get them from time to time, but nowhere near as much. Like I remember growing up, there was like an F5 or like an F4 that hit kind of the town I was in. Let's see here. What kind of tornado was that? Yeah, it was an F5 tornado in 1997. It was crazy. It went all up and down the I-35 corridor. It produced about 20 tornadoes in total.
Was it the Gerald tornado?
Yep. It hit like Gerald, which is just north of the Austin area.
Yeah, the worst tornado, and I wasn't even born yet, but the one that hit Paris, Texas in like 1982 or it was in the 80s, I think. But it was also an F5 tornado, but it tore, I think it was an F4 F5, but it tore through Paris quite heavily. But like I'll be honest with you, I'm okay with that. I'm okay that Tornado Alley has shifted. Like I don't care. It doesn't bother me any, but I will say it is actually one of the bucket list, and I hate saying that this is on my bucket list, but it's like I want to see a tornado in real life. Not like, like it's coming right at me kind of thing, but like I just want to be driving like down I-35 and I just see a tornado in the distance and I just want to pull over on the side of the highway and just take pictures and video and stuff like that of it and then get in my car and go. Like I'm not going to stand there and just stare at the thing the entire time, wait to see if it's going to come at me. Like I'm going to just take a few pictures, get back in my car, go. I just want to be able to see one in real life, not just like, videos or anything like that of other states. So.
No, that makes sense. You could, if we want the listeners of Unscripted Company, we could start a GoFundMe account for you to become a new storm chaser, and you can go all over North Texas, and you can chase those storms down. Because honestly, like North Denton County is kind of like a prime tornado spot. When I was living up there, anytime there's a tornado, it was always like the north side of town because of all the empty land out there. Because you can't
not anymore.
Not anymore. Have y'all not gotten it recently?
Dude, we have not had a tornado. We have not had a tornado in a long time, and it's been like, let me see, I can probably just look it up, but it's like, I think the closest tornado that actually got to Denton was, I think it was last year. I think it was last year it hit Decatur and was going to Sanger, and that was either way earlier this year or late last year that it happened.
There was one, man, what year was it? 'Cause I was still living in the dorms. And I remember that one actually worried me. It was 2014, might have been 2013. But I was living in a dorm room to where, like, if I looked outside my door, it was outside. And like when a tornado comes, you look in one direction and it just looks beautiful. The sun's out, sky's empty. But then you look behind you and it's like dark and it looks like hell, basically.
Right.
It was one of those. But like the building was so old and rickety, and I was on the third floor, which was the top floor. And I was just like, oh, man. And, like, the siren was going off and everything. And it was like, it's time to duck and cover. That one was, like, just north of Razor Ranch. It was just, like, out in an open field out there. It just, like, started to pick up. It didn't really destroy anything. It just kind of, like, did its thing and dissipated. But it was out there. Like, not too far.
What year was that in?
That was, like, 2013, 2014.
Okay, so that was before we moved out there. But I was looking at a graph here, and the last tornado that hit Denton County was 2022, and then we only had one in Denton County, and that was it. And we haven't. And
I feel old now saying that. Oh yeah, it was 2013, 2014. That was a decade ago. So
Right.
That literally was 10 years ago. So, I mean, it's been a while since.
But yeah, there was only one tornado that I think we actually were involved in here in Denton. It was when we lived at those other apartments over on the south side of Denton. We were on the third floor, and I was kind of going out to the balcony, looking around. You could just see you've been over it there, but you could see pretty much all of Denton.
Yeah.
And we heard the sirens go off, so we went to Walmart and everything like that. There was a small tornado that hit, but it wasn't enough to do any damage. Like, I got pictures on my phone of what the sky looked like afterwards, and there was a small, I think it was like an F1 tornado that hit, but it barely did anything. Like, it kind of just came down, hit, went back up. So that was it.
That's the one thing I took for granted in Denton when I was up there, was because of the universities, they have the tornado alarms. And I know, or like, I guess like extreme weather alarms, whatever you want to call them. I know some cities in the country have them, but like in the Austin area, like I'm not aware of any. I know we have a small suburb that has one, but in terms of being aware of what's going on, like, yeah, you'll check your phone. Yeah, you'll check the local news, like their website, stuff like that. But in terms of just, you know, if you're taking a nap, you kind of want to hear something blaring that like, hey, it's time to be aware that nature is about to screw with you. I don't know, it's kind of nice. But
yeah, it just blows my mind, because there's been so many, like, in the past like couple, I'd say probably the past like year and a half, there's been so much bad weather and like winds and hail and rain and everything like that. And we had some bad weather, I think like a couple weeks. No, it's probably about a couple weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago. And we heard the tornado sirens going off. We were just chilling in our apartment, getting ready to eat dinner and everything like that. I heard the sirens go off. I stepped outside. I just kind of walked down the stairs a little bit. It's raining, pouring down. We hear the sirens, and we're just standing there. And we're like, okay. Nothing about like an active tornado on the ground, nothing. Obviously, they do it if there's a tornado warning. We never even left the apartment. I was like, you know what? Whatever. If it's on its way, cool. But I mean, I'm not gonna get out in the pouring rain. Like that, we're just gonna go huddle in the bathtub and just call it a day. You know, whatever happens. Because, you know, trying to get out through all that with all the bad weather and stuff, it'd be enough anyway. So
yeah, and one thing I worry about now too is, you know how they always say like a tornado sounds like a train, like the low hum of a train. If Like, if you ever hear that, you know a tornado's coming your way. It's kind of problematic when you live by a train track and you have trains that just run on a normal basis. So it's like, is it a tornado or is it just a freaking train that runs every 2 hours? For context, I live by a train track. So like whenever it's storming, I'm like, okay, is that a train? Is it a tornado? I'm like, I'll risk it. We'll see what happens.
Have you ever seen the infamous dead man walking tornado?
I don't think, not at least by the name. I don't believe so.
It's going to be just like a quick, I want to see if I can find the exact one. But it's exactly what it sounds like. So I'm going to see if I can exactly find. It's funny though, because like I don't think they have like an actual video out of it, but I'm going to see if.
Oh yes, it looks like a person walking. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So it says real footage of the dead man walking tornado. It was part of one of the most severe tornado outbreaks in U.S. history, known as the 2011 super outbreak. Oh, this is from 2011.
Yeah.
I thought this was from like 1920 or something.
And so I don't know how many people actually died during that instance though, but it was insane, because they're saying if you ever see anything like that, like that signifies like just death. Like that's what that means. And I'm like, I never want to see one of those ever in my life.
Yeah, if
like,
who's listening, it looks like the legs of, like, if you could picture a tornado but made out of legs, and it was just like death. That's what it looks creepy. Like, it looks very eerie.
Yeah, it does. I showed Dana that last night. I was like, have you ever heard and seen this? She's like, no. And so I showed it to her. She was like, what the heck? Like, she got scared. And I was like, it's, and like, there's never been another one like that. Like, that's the only one of those. So it's like, there had to have been a reason that was like, I don't know how many people died during that. I could probably Google it and find out. But yeah.
And sometimes too, like those massive tornadoes, like they really do happen out in the country, like rural Nebraska, Iowa, to where thankfully there's not a ton of people, like statistically, that would be in the path of the tornado. But I mean, don't get me wrong, there's definitely tornadoes that will take a whole community and just destroy it. Like I remember, was it Rockdale? Is it Rockdale that was in like northeast or southeast of Dallas? They got hit. That was like 2016 in Texas, and then not Nashville. Somewhere in Tennessee or Kentucky got rocked about a year or two ago too. Like they had I know they had a situation where like an Amazon warehouse got hit and people perished in there, and it was some depressing stuff. But
well, there was a tornado that hit Dallas, like completely bypassed Denton. Like we had the makings for a tornado, just completely bypassed Denton, and then it hit Dallas, it was insane. But there was one tornado, I can't remember the exact distance that it traveled, but I'm actually looking it up right now. Okay, here it is. So this one was the Tri-State Tornado. I don't know if you've ever heard of this one, but it was 1925.
Oh.
With a path length of 151 to 235 miles.
Whoa.
So like it went across, so like if you look at this here, I'll just kind of pull up the map of it just to kind of show you. So it started all the way in Arkansas and went all the way up through Kentucky to Indiana.
And like southwest Arkansas too.
Yeah, like
all the way
traveled all the way there. It lasted 8 hours and it traveled over about 350 miles.
Whoa.
And this
2021. Oh, this is the one I think I was talking about. Maybe there's one that like it destroyed, and I think it might be that.
Oh, well, hold on, let me see.
Because I remember there was a story, and it's so depressing and sad, but I'm gonna say it anyways, where there was like a group of people or a dude that like they were at an Amazon warehouse, and Amazon wouldn't let them go home, but the tornado hit the warehouse, and like people perished, and they could have easily just gone home.
So here's this one actually. So this is the Tri-State Tornado. Let's see if it actually. Let me look at a map real quick. Yeah. So this is 1925. So this is where it started at.
Oh, 1925. Okay.
Yeah. So they've had other ones though, but this is the longest one though.
Oh,
it's like this is where, and I'm trying to think of where Annapolis is.
Maryland. Wait, there's an Annapolis, Maryland, but that's St. Louis. So
yeah. So I think it's Missouri. So it went from Missouri, up to
Princeton. Is that Kentucky? Wait, that's Missouri.
Yeah, so Missouri. What's that?
These are the city names they're using for comparison. Like I can think of all those cities in other states. Like we got Cuba, we got Mount Vernon or Mount?
Oh, there it is. Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that tornado, it took a lot of lives. Let's see here. 695 deaths in that tornado.
That's not ideal.
And we don't really. I say this but even back like 10 years ago we don't really get tornadoes like that anymore because of all the, especially in Texas, because of all the growth that we've had, like all the city growth and everything. Like you usually see tornadoes like that are in just like open fields.
That's true. That is true. You do get that breaks up a lot of that. What do you call it? The jet streams of air where they intersect. Yeah. So you get that, it kind of breaks that up a little bit.
Yep.
Huh. So, I mean, we started the episode talking about bad weather, and the Iranian president may or may not have perished in a helicopter crash because of bad weather. And we ended on a note with even more bad weather with the tornado outbreak from the 1920s. I think this episode is going to be titled something to do with bad weather. I'm not sure what that title is, to be determined, but it's something like that.
This is your weekly weather news update from Unscripted Company.
Breaking news. Yeah. For those that are still listening, of course, please do leave us a comment, give us a like, a subscribe, a follow, depending on what platform you're on. Definitely, like, it helps the show. It helps other people find us, first of all, but also we really want to know your feedback, because we're still in such an infancy phase of this podcast that any and all feedback you have, we definitely want to hear it, whether it be show ideas, things that we do that maybe annoys you, or maybe things that we do that you enjoy and that you want us to do more of. Like this episode is very different from our other episodes where we've just kind of, somehow we kept to the theme of weather, which that was not the plan going into this. But, you know, we talked about multiple different topics rather than just one overall topic. The other thing I want to bring up was we don't have them yet. I guess, Riley, you and I need to order some so we can wear them, but we do have hoodies, and we'll maybe have more merch in the future. We'll show that off in a future episode, but just as a little heads up, we do have some hoodies that can be purchased. You just go to unscriptedcompany.com, look for the shirt logo, and you'll see it. You can click it. It'll take you over to where you can purchase it, but we'll definitely talk about that more in the future as it becomes available. Riley, any parting words of wisdom for those that are still in attendance for this company town hall meeting?
Stay safe out there. This weather's getting real bad, y'all.
Make sure your government-issued weather machine is in working order, and you too can stay safe this hurricane season. That's the other thing. Hurricane season is right around the corner. If not now, I think it starts in April. It already started, but that's the next thing. We already had tornadoes hit Texas. Like, not to go on another tangent because we're basically wrapping this one up, but Houston just got rocked with a tornado. Who's not to say a hurricane's going to come through anytime soon? I hope it doesn't. My parents live in Galveston, so I hope that doesn't happen. But
yeah,
something to be aware of. So,
indeed.